What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I am back with an album review, EP, single. I don't know. This release has me kind of confused or kerfuffled a little bit. After all, I am reviewing something from a band that has been broken up for over 10 years, and I guess this is a new release, but it also isn't. And this is from a band whose last lineup could still reform, like right now, because all the members are still around. I'm going over a new Cathedral release that, again, isn't new. Society's Pact with Satan. Now, while technically this is kind of a new release, it came out on the 3rd of October on Rise Above Records. It was recorded and, I guess, kind of forgotten about around the time of Cathedral's last album, The Last SPIRE, which came out in 2013, which they even announced before that album came out that this is it. Cathedral is done. Which, for a backstory, Cathedral formed in 1989 in the UK and once again broke up in 2013 after their last album, The Last SPIRE. This would be their 6th EP overall, if this is counted as an EP. Might as well lump it in someplace. They released 10 full-length albums throughout the course of their career and are often regarded as one of the earliest doom metal bands out there, kind of like pioneers in that style. Arguably even pioneers in terms of like stoner doom too, because this band went through some stylistic changes throughout the course of their career. And I've been a fan of this band for a long time. I believe since the Carnival Bazaar. I really enjoyed the song Utopia Blaster. I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. Man, this guy's vocals are kind of goofy. And yeah, I do make fun of Lee Dorian's vocals quite a bit. I do have like some respect for the guy. Like, he's kind of a legendary frontman, both in like Napalm Death and of course his work in Cathedral, With the Dead, Septic Tank. His vocals are just an acquired taste, I guess. And I haven't quite acquired all the taste. There's one particular vocal style that he does that I just can't take seriously because he sounds like this. That's right. Spooky Lee Dorian. Ooh. I don't know how he went from the roaring maniac that was on, like, you know, Mentally Murdered to what sounds like an undead carnival barker mixed with, like, Macho Man Randy Savage. But that transition, it never really worked with me. But I still wanted to check this out because, you know, I really enjoyed the music behind this band. Like, yeah, Lee's vocals, again, you know, sometimes they're all right. And then sometimes they're comically bad. But musically, this band has always had awesome riffs, really solid songwriting, and I really wanted to check out what is possibly the last thing we will ever hear from them unless, you know, they misplaced another 30-minute single somewhere in the studio. But anyway, this was recorded at the same time as everything else on The Last SPIRE, which I'll admit was a pretty solid last offering and a good way to go out. I mean, up until right now, but they've already gone out, but this is still like the last track they'll probably ever release. This is confusing for like a number of reasons. Like, all right, releasing a posthumous track after the band is already passed, I guess. I don't think there are any plans of them like actually, you know, like reforming the band. I think everyone that was on this lineup has their own projects right now, even Scott Carlson. I mean, yeah, Repulsion's not going to record anything new, but I mean, he'll still tour on that album for like ever. But for me, the question that kept circling around my head for this was, how does one lose, misplace, forget about a 30-minute song that sounds like the fucking end of the world? Not only because the size and the magnitude of this song, but also it was recorded as, I would say, like the magnum opus of your last album. How do you forget that track? The only theory I have is Lee stumbled upon it years ago and just looked at it and listened to it as like, no, not yet. It hasn't been the absolute fucking worst year ever yet. Which in my story arc means he discovered this after 2020. And then, you know, decided 2025 was the year of absolute butt sauce. And then decided, you know what? I think everyone is ready for some end of the world level doom. Because that is exactly what this is. This track is absolutely gigantic, easily the most lavish thing I think I've ever heard them do, and I own, I think, most of their albums. I might be missing like one or two. But this is written in huge sweeping movements, and it is chock full of just grimy, downtrodden, just bleak sounding riffs, but also a lot of like clever harmonies, really fun lead work, some more galloping I wouldn't say upbeat because the tone of this album is, well, I mean, if you go check out the whole YouTube stream of this song, you can read the nihilistic dystopian hellscape that Lee essentially paints with his lyrics on that entire song. They're actually printed down there too. Lots of chants and refrains towards the end about how much we suck, the world sucks, and of course one last goodbye. But the song is broken up into really interesting movements. It opens up with, what kind of sounds like the wailing choirs in 2001: A Space Odyssey, albeit in hell, with a lot of demonic chatter and like maniacal laughter all kind of swirling about. It sounds like there's like fires burning too. The atmosphere is dense, it sounds dark and inhospitable, and then comes the guitars after about like 2 minutes of like setting up the whole vibe, which, believe me, we got it after about like 30 seconds. But the riffs come in, they're heavy, they're downtrodden, it's slow and menacing, the drums sound crisp. The guitars are huge. They got ferocious low end. Scott Carlson's bass sounds like it's being boiled in the background, but in like a really good way. The mix on this is pretty much pristine in my mind, but if you own the last SPIRE, you know how good the mix is already. It doesn't sound like much else was done to this. Maybe it was like a little bit more beefed up because technology gets better over 10 years. At least that's the theory. But it comes in thunderous and doomy, and then you get a pause with like these gloomy, gothic, kind of Addams Family-esque organs, and then Lee comes in. And honestly, Lee's vocal performance in here isn't too bad. Like, he's a little shaky in terms of like, his vibrato occasionally, which, he's never been like the most tuneful vocalist. But he does this whole like kind of call and response with the organ melody, and then he'll respond with his vocals. And his lyrics are charmingly dark and just absolutely appropriate for a song like this. But you get a little bit of this to start, and then around like the 7.5 minute mark, it starts picking up. You get more up-tempo drums, the riffs get chuggier. Lee changes his vocal delivery to almost like a punk or a hardcore sort of delivery, kind of similar to what he does in Septic Tank. And honestly, I think this is one of the most fun points of this song. It's this fun little kind of refrain, like it goes back to this whole like shouty, punky part, and then in between there, you get these just kind of fun riffy jams where they're kind of going back and forth with like catchy lead melodies, flat out solo trade-offs, and just kind of like, changing the riff around and then again revisiting so Lee can tell us about the end of the fucking world once again. It's catchy, it's energetic. I really like this section of the song. Like, this is, again, like kind of my favorite part. But it takes a really interesting turn after that around the 13.5 minute mark. We get back to the organs. You get this like droning sort of muffled choir thing going on in the background. And it's going right back to like the doomy kind of like Sabbathy vibe. You get this really cool swing of a drum pattern. And once again, Lee kind of changes his vocal approach. The vocal cadence itself is very odd. You get this kind of like interesting contrast because the music sounds bleak and doomy, again like heavy on the Black Sabbath, but it sounds like he's doing almost a more like Britpop sort of like vocal cadence. And even like the tone of his vocals, it feels like it's a little bit lighter and a little bit more airy. But again, everything he's saying is very doomy and very ominous and very dark, so you get this weird contrast. It feels like he's channeling like the Beatles and the Who, but at the same time trying to emulate some of the more like dark theatrical parts of like Pink Floyd's The Wall. It's a very odd section, but it does kind of work. What happens next is, I don't know, like what I would call like kind of a series of like jam sessions on here. Around the 17-minute mark, you get this, nice pleasant passage of acoustic guitars and clean guitars, really sweet harmonies. It's a tad folksy, and it feels like it's intended to be like a short transitional track, which, in respect to the length of the song, I guess it kind of is. It's like a little bit over 2 minutes. But it hangs out too long. But it transitions very harshly into the next section, which is a chuggy rocker with like a chanted refrain about we destroy everything and we will destroy ourselves. Again, Lee reminding us, and by us I mean all of humanity, that we suck. But at this point, he's kind of just left with refrains because that's kind of all that's left in terms of like his vocals. He doesn't have like a tremendous amount of vocals on here, which also might be a reason why I might like this a little bit more or find it just quite a bit more listenable. He has the power to make or break a song, in my opinion. When he's on it and sounds good and can actually carry a tune, I really don't have a lot of problems with it. When he's off, it's a fucking deal breaker. just turn it off. It'll never get better. But this riffy section's pretty cool. There's a lot of fun changes in the riffs. It's a little bit more loose, but my issue is that little transition into it. It feels like just two parts of two different songs kind of stapled together. And that's kind of the whole back half of this, because after that you get into like another refrain, some more fun riffs. It's more galloping, more urgent sounding. Like there's a little bit of like classic heavy metal in there, maybe a touch of like Carcass too. It's solid, it's fun, but again, it kind of feels stitched on to the last part. And then we get the big closer. No more vocals at this point. We just get that book-ended giant doomy riff that we really started off with. It sounds menacing. It sounds dark. It lumbers. It lurches. This is absolutely the way to close the song. Just fade out on that riff. And they didn't fucking do that. They decided to tag on an additional 3.5 minutes of all the noises that open it up. I totally get having that satanic fuzz or whatever the fuck it was to like, set the atmosphere, but the atmosphere is already set. We're at the end of the song, the home run fucking stretch. You close the song out with that awesome riff and fade out, you're like leaving the ring an absolute fucking champion. You are retiring on top, even though you're already retired in this scenario. But yeah, that would perfectly close out this song, and they didn't do it. They just added this noisy soundscape at the end just to pad out length. I don't know why it's there. It's again already like almost a half an hour. Like it's about like what, 14 seconds shy of that mark. This could have been like just an absolutely savage 25-minute song without that long bit of filler at the end. But honestly, that's my biggest gripe. That and again, like some of these parts feeling like stitched together jam sessions, but the themes feel coherent. They follow throughout the entire song. It sounds bleak. It conveys a whole dystopian fucking hellscape that we may or may not live in. I don't know yet. Jury's still out on that. I don't know why it wasn't released with the last SPIRE, but I'm glad we're getting it now because it's pretty damn good. And I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. There's definitely like a bit of fat to trim in terms of like, some of the soundscapes. And again, like some of these jammy sessions that feel stitched together. There's probably maybe some better ways they could have transitioned into them. But overall, like this is one hell of a grand song. It's chock full of riffs. I can't even really make fun of Lee's vocals very much in here. He sounds good in terms of what he's doing. It sounds ominous and dark. Lee works great. The production's fucking amazing. Everything sounds crisp and heavier than hell. It's a very ambitious track that, for the most part, I think kind of nails what they were going for. Where it is like arguably a little bit cheesy and kitschy at times, I still think it's pretty damn fun. And honestly, this should have been a bonus disc on Last Rites, and that would have been like the coup de grace right there, the giant knockout punch to close out their career that we're getting right now. Over 10 years too late. I don't know. I don't get why this came out now, but I'm happy it did. If you're a longtime fan of Cathedral, there's a good chance you've already jammed the hell out of this. But also, I mean, if you like stuff like The Sword, Black Sabbath, Candlemass, St. Vitus, literally like any fucking project that I think Wino has been in, anything like that, check this out, give it a whirl. It's a pretty fun listen. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They're only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we will probably do later this month. We'll let you know when we figure out a date. We'll probably be posted up in the community. Either way, membership's the main way to support the channel, and there's a join button down there for you to hit, punch, doom with the absolutely savage riffs of this single. I feel as though they're powerful enough to actually trigger the join button. Try it out, and if it doesn't work, you can just use your finger and be boring. And of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that stuff. It means the world to us. It still blows my mind how much this channel has grown. I'm working on a lot of different stuff in terms of like a solo capacity. John and Shred are kind of out for this week just because of extenuating circumstances, but they'll be back relatively soon. And outside of that, we have some other fun ideas in terms of like group chats. We just kind of got to get the time to actually do them. Either way, I just wanted to thank you guys one more time for literally everything you do. You guys are absolutely amazing, and we will catch you later.